You want to see something really scary?
You bet.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, this is really, really scary now.
I trust you.
Hello, Internet fans. It's your old pal Rotten Roger DeMarco here from RepulsiveReviews.com. This week, we're going to be talking about Bob Clark's 1974 classic, Black Christmas. It's still December, so you know what that means. We got to talk about the most influential Christmas horror film of all time. Here is the plot rundown. A killer breaks into a sorority house during Christmas break and picks everybody off one by one. Not an overly complex plot, but this movie is fucking incredible. Before we get into my overall thoughts of this film and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, first, let's take a look at Ryan Rogers!
Splatter facts.
We have 7 dead bodies. We have 0 titties. We have gratuitous prank phone calls. And we have drunk Margot Kidder. The methods of death include, but are not limited to, suffocation, hooked, off-screened, unicorned, and throat slit. Some of you might recognize the name Bob Clark. This is sort of important because Bob Clark actually is responsible for creating A Christmas Story, which is another Christmas season staple. So it's kind of amazing that this one man is responsible for the most lighthearted Christmas film of all time and being responsible for the most influential holiday-themed horror film ever made. I know a lot of you are thinking, let's not jump the gun. Halloween is far more influential. And I say nay. Black Christmas predates Halloween and also is one of the very first movies to do the killer's POV. Second only to Peeping Tom, which is another amazing, groundbreaking movie. There's a lot of things about this movie that I love, and I'm going to try to lay them out for you as quickly and as informatively as possible. This is one of those movies where we were not used to this type of scare. This is not a splatter film. This is not a slasher film, despite the holiday setting, despite the a little bit higher than average body count. This is a master class in filmmaking. This is a truly unnerving movie. Now, I watch this movie about once a year. You know, every holiday season I throw this movie on, and I tend to forget how unnerving this movie is. There is some genuine skin-crawling moments in this movie for me. The killer taunts and teases the sorority sisters by finding a phone line that's upstairs in the attic and calling the downstairs phone line, which I know some of you are already rolling your eyes. The call is coming from inside the house. But listen, this is 1974. This predates When a Stranger Calls. This predates the trend of the killer calling from inside the house. That urban legend. Just, it's a fantastic premise, which people are so used to now. And this did it first. And when you watch this movie, if you watch this movie in the dark, and you watch this movie, throw your fucking phone away and lock the doors and shut the lights out and immerse yourself in this film. It is terrifying. Some of the voices on that phone give me the fucking heebie-jeebies, and I have seen a lot of shit.
I have seen shit that'll turn you white.
This movie stands the test of time. The cinematographer actually mounted this camera on his shoulders and scaled the side of the house and climbed into the window with the opening scene, the unbroken oneer where the killer invades the sorority house. This is groundbreaking stuff for those of you who are so used to the tropes. This is a movie that created those tropes, much like Halloween. It's a movie that demands to be seen and demands your attention. If you half-ass watch this movie in the background, you will not feel the tension that is intended. But I cannot stress enough how amazing this movie is. The cast really shines. You have Olivia Hussey, who was, most of you might remember from her groundbreaking performance in a little film called The Ice Cream Man. You thought I was going to say Romeo and Juliet, and you would be wrong. She might actually be the weakest link in the movie, and that's saying something because she is a classically trained, fantastic actress. It's the accent, I think, that kind of takes me out of it a bit with her. She's got some class. You know, she's a very classy lady. And then opposite of her, you have Margot Kidder, who is drunk and crass and very flirtatious and wild. You have a lot of these different character types, these different archetypes in this house. And this is pre-stereotypical characters, you know, like a slutty person and a nerdy person and a jock and all that hoopla. These characters are written in such a way that they all lend something special to the story, and they all have very different voices. This is not your standard line them up, chop them down film, and I think that's one of the things that sets it apart. And then you have John Saxon, who is always the king of being a civil servant, second only to Dick Miller or another character actor, Buck Flower. John Saxon always plays a police officer, a security guard, a lieutenant, a sergeant, something. This is no different. Here he is, being a police officer, but it's so convincing and it's so well done. You're pulling for him. You want him to save the day. That is another one of those things, that this isn't just a run-of-the-mill cookie-cutter film. You really invest a lot in these characters, and I think that, you know, being made in 74, this is over 40 years old, and it's still going strong and still impacting new viewers. I think that is a testament to how great this movie really is. I want to say that this is the very first seasonal horror film that started the trend. This was the Christmas-themed horror film. It took 4 years for there to be Halloween, and then, you know, later in the game we had like April Fool's Day, we had New Year's Evil, all these holiday-themed films. Even got so desperate that they're grabbing, you know, like a Bloody Birthday or a Happy Birthday to Me, which I've already talked about Bloody Birthday. Another fun fact about this movie is that this was actually Elvis Presley's favorite horror film. He loved this movie so much that he watched it every Christmas. And now that he has passed on, his family carry on the tradition, and every Christmas his family gathers around and watches this movie. That's a little weird thing, you know. The king of rock and roll sitting there eating his banana peanut butter sandwich, or whatever the fuck, you know, whatever he was eating, and watching Black Christmas and loving it. Some of the things that stick out to me, how crass and vulgar Margot Kidder is, and they're getting these phone calls, right? She takes control of the phone. She is the loudest one in the house. So of course she's going to use her mouth, her bravado, to shut this obscene caller up. You know, hindsight is 2020. Maybe, just maybe, when you get an obscene phone call, you don't antagonize the person on the other end, because they might be in your motherfucking attic and stab you with a unicorn. One of the things about this movie that is fantastic is you might not have ever seen the movie, but this movie gave us such an iconic kill, such an iconic poster and cover art. This image of the girl in the rocking chair with the plastic wrap stuck in her mouth and her eyes wide open. It's on shirts, it's on posters, and it's just, that image alone will burn into your brain and is synonymous with the horror genre. Chances are, if you haven't seen this movie, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. And it's such a good, effective scene. I can't say enough good things about this crazy-ass movie. The cinematographer used one of my all-time favorite tricks to achieve one of my all-time favorite shots. It's a trick called lens whacking, where the lens is halfway out of the housing of the camera, tilted. And what that accomplishes is the background and the foreground being in focus at the same time, with a blurred line in between the two of them, making them both in focus. It's effective. I love the look that it gives The movie, I love when that shot is utilized properly. It sort of makes everything feel claustrophobic. And that's another great thing about this movie, is that the house itself is almost a character. The house is so menacing and large. Just looking at this house, you know that there are so many places for this guy to get around and hide and come out of, and you spend the entirety of the movie inside the house searching the frame because everything is filmed in such a large scope. You know he's there. You know he's coming. And then eventually he's there. And the shock that this movie delivers is second to none. This is Hitchcockian filmmaking at its best. I can't get over the techniques and the tactics used in this film. You never see the killer. It's almost impossible. If you have seen the movie, go back, watch the movie and see this. You never see the killer at all, but there are moments you know he's there. You see an eyeball, you see his arm, you never see the killer's face, you never see the killer officially attack somebody. This is such a great way to keep the audience on the edge of their seat. You want to see who this guy is and why is he doing this? And this is another case of when the movie ends, this isn't a standard, everything is wrapped up in a nice little bow. Everybody isn't dead. The killer is at large. The police have not done their job, and the movie pulls back. You're literally in the thick of it, waiting for some form of resolution. And the movie says, we know you want it, so we're leaving. Oh, it's infuriating. Motherfucker. I love this movie. This movie deals with a lot of touchy subjects as well. Olivia Hussey's character finds out that she is pregnant, and she tells her boyfriend that she wants to have an abortion. And obviously, you know, he is against it. And she says, well, I don't want to marry you. I don't want this to define my life. I am not ready to have a child, and I am not going to have a child, and you cannot make me. For 1974, this sparks a lot of debate, and it still does today. It's a touchy subject that puts you square in the center. It makes for uncomfortable, realistic dialogue, and that is very tough to do in the horror genre. Most everybody is like a cardboard cutout. It's so hard to watch, and at the same time, there's nothing happening. It's a voice on the other end of the phone, which is very shrill. You know how someone sounds on the phone. There's no bass. It's very trebly. It's very cracky. It's incredibly effective. I urge you, if you have not seen Black Christmas, check this movie out. If you don't own it, click the link in the description and get a copy. It's so influential. You can really see it. Movies later down the road started emulating everything that was successful about this movie. I really think this is one of the trendsetters, if not the originator. I mean, everybody credits Psycho for what Psycho did. And this is 14 years later, but it was groundbreaking. So, in my personal opinion, I have to give this movie 4 out of 5 blood drops. Rest assured, this ranks very, very high on my 4 blood drops. This movie is a fucking game changer. So with that being said, make sure that you come back to the channel next week, because I'm going to be talking about the Black Christmas remake. The things it did right, the things it did wrong, and where I stand on it. So, like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, and we'll check this video out next week. I should probably get going, because after all, there's a lot of movies out there. Somebody's got to watch them. So why not me, right?